Hello, everyone. I'm Marina Hayrapetyan, a product manager at Walmart Global Tech. I'm also a chapter lead at Women in Product Washington, D.C. region. Welcome to the Lead Through Change stage. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment and thank our sponsors. Without them, this event would not be possible. During this session, Strong Leaders in Unpredictable Times, we have three amazing speakers. First on stage, we have Naomi Gleit. Naomi is Vice President of Product and Social Impact at Facebook. She leads the team building products and tools that work across Facebook's family of apps, helping people do good on and off Facebook. Naomi also oversees the growth of Facebook's core app and manages the product management organization and team working to keep people safe on Facebook. One of Facebook's first employees, Naomi has worked on almost every major initiative at the company, including most recently the COVID-19 Information Center and the Voter Information Center. She was a founding member and leader of the growth team that helped Facebook grow from 1 million people when she joined 14 years ago to over 3 billion today. Naomi Gleit will share her expertise with you during our next presentation, Leading Through Crisis. Please join me in welcoming Naomi Gleit to our stage.
Hi, everyone. I'm Naomi Gleit, the VP of Product and Social Impact here at Facebook. Thank you so much for having me here at the Women in Product Conference. Obviously, it does look a little bit different this year, and that's because we are navigating a completely unprecedented crisis. This is a public health emergency. It is an economic recession, and it's a time when a lot of us are experiencing extreme anxiety and, for some, personal tragedy. I'll talk a little bit about how Facebook is navigating this crisis through the lens of our product response specifically. So I'll talk about our approach, our strategy, and our execution on our COVID-19 product response, and I'll walk through the frameworks that we're using in each of these steps. First, let's recap the key milestones. It was early in March 18th, that Facebook actually mandated, just after the WHO had declared COVID a global pandemic, we mandated that all employees move to work from home. This was even earlier than some of the states and counties in the country had mandated shelter-in-place orders. So what did we do? Our number one priority was just keeping the site up and running. We know that people use our apps and services when they're not together in person. We also know that they're particularly useful and critical during a crisis. And so we were seeing really unprecedented spikes in usage. Oftentimes we can prepare for these spikes. We know that we're going to see a spike on New Year's Eve. We know that the Olympics, we're going to see a lot of traffic. But this was both unprecedented traffic and unexpected. And on top of that, we were all working from home at the same time for the first time. So how did we even approach this? Having worked here for many years, I've been at Facebook for 15 years, I've had the privilege of seeing a lot of really smart people try to solve different kinds of problems and challenges. And over time, I've developed a very simple framework to solving product problems, but also I think that are that can be useful for solving any kind of problem. And that is understand, identify, execute. You want to understand the insights and data about what's happening around you, focus groups, analytics, quantitative data, qualitative data. And then you want to identify things that you can fix or improve. And then you want to execute on those things by either bug fixing, building new tools, iterating on existing tools. And that's the approach that we've taken for so many challenges here at Facebook, and the approach that we took in this case as well. As I mentioned, traffic was increasing across the board, but we really wanted to know, were there specific products or features that were being used more or less than others, because that would help us understand what was the most valuable to people during this time. We know traffic was increasing across stories and feed, but we saw the biggest increases in messaging, and not just messaging overall, but video and voice calling in particular, and specifically group video and group voice calling. In countries that were hit hardest by COVID, we were seeing an increase in 50% overall messaging, and as much as 1,000% increase in group video and voice calling in a country like Italy. At the same time, we had just gotten the results of a state of the small business report that we commissioned. We did this before we even knew about the crisis, but in partnership with OECD and the World Bank, we ended up surveying over 30,000 small business leaders, and we got incredible insights into how they were being impacted and adapting to the COVID crisis. We saw that they were unfortunately experiencing a big decline in revenues, especially from their physical retail stores. People were sheltering in place and weren't outside shopping. This was due to the lockdowns, but also increased economic uncertainty. And so as a result, a lot of these small business leaders were telling us that they were trying to shift their offline sales to online sales to adapt to the crisis. Overall, I think that we were seeing an acceleration in pre-existing long-term trends. And even before COVID, these were trends that we were preparing for and building for, both the shift to private social communication on our messaging services and also enabling more online commerce. But given the acceleration in these pre-existing trends, we wanted to accelerate our roadmap to align with people's needs at the moment. The messaging trends suggested that there was a lot that we can do to improve our messaging and video calling, our live video features, our video chat features, like our rooms feature. And also the State of the Small Business Report suggested that there's so much that we could do to help small businesses with their digital transition. At the same time, like I mentioned, everyone was working from home and they were struggling with their office environment. And more importantly, they were helping to care for loved ones that might also be home or even sick. So again, based on this understand, identify, execute approach to solving problems, we had identified this strategy. I mentioned the two prongs of our strategy: helping people stay connected, even if they're physically distant, and helping small businesses recover. But one thing that was a complete no-brainer was just making sure that we were supporting our health partners in any way that we could help. And in terms of execution, how would we get this all done? How would we do this while everyone was at home and, dealing with a lot of other non-work related stuff? We did this by separating into 3 different phases. Phase 1 was just going to be, what could we do to ship as quickly as possible in the next 2 to 4 weeks, leveraging all of the people that were volunteering to help at that time. Phase 2 would be, how do we set up more of an ongoing, dedicated team that could ship longer term improvements that might take a few months. And then phase 3 was really about setting up sustainable, long-term dedicated teams focused on these areas for the years to come. So I'll walk through each of these phases. Phase 1 was really focused on getting people accurate information about COVID. At that time, COVID was very confusing. It was hard to know where to go to find out what you needed to know from people that you could trust. And so that's why we partnered with health organizations to direct 2 billion people to the COVID-19 Information Center on Facebook. At the same time, businesses were looking for resources on how to move their business online. That's why we launched the Business Resources Hub and offered $100 million in grants to small businesses who were looking to accelerate their digital transition. Phase 2, relief. This is when we introduced our longer term Messenger Rooms product. It's a video chat feature that allows you to video chat with up to 50 friends. You can take a link, send it to your friends. They can click on it and be in your Messenger room, even if they're not on Facebook. We also launched Shops. It's an easy way for small businesses to set up a digital storefront or a digital presence on Facebook and Instagram, and in the future, Messenger and WhatsApp. And when it comes to health, we were hearing from our partners that they really needed more insights about how the virus was spreading. And that's why we partnered with Carnegie Mellon University to run a symptom survey. Oftentimes, people reporting on their symptoms can be an early warning signal about how a virus is spreading, even before we have confirmed cases. Phase 3 was all about the long-term marathon. How were we going to evolve our health, our economic impact, our remote presence work streams over the years to come, because it was clear that all of these work streams were ongoing and COVID was not going away anytime soon. For example, COVID was beginning to impact our elections process. A lot of states were forced to make changes to their voting processes as a result of COVID. We leveraged our learnings from the COVID-19 Information Center to apply them to a new voter information center where people could go to get information about how to register to vote and how to vote in person and vote by mail. And we also launched a dedicated shopping destination, almost like an online mall on both Facebook and Instagram, where people like me could browse my favorite online stores and discover new ones. Overall, I think that we've had a lot of impact, but there's still so much to do. We've connected over 2 billion people to health information around COVID through our information center. We have seen over $100 million raised in fundraisers for nonprofits and small businesses that are struggling during this time. We've invested $100 million to support small businesses ourselves, and we've partnered with tons of universities, academics, nonprofits to share our learnings from data like our symptom surveys. This crisis is still ongoing. We're really learning about what has gone well and what we need to improve moving forward. Quickly, one of the things that has gone really well is thinking about these 3 different phases in terms of how we execute our strategy. Having a short-term sprint combined with long-term marathons has worked really well for us. At the same time, I think that we can do more to communicate our insights and understandings around the COVID crisis. This is the quant and qual data that I'm talking about, the focus groups. This is such valuable information that is informing how we evolve our product response, that we can do a much better job of making sure that everyone at the company is operating from the same insights that we have available. Overall, this is something that I hope has been helpful and educational. It definitely has for us as we navigate this crisis here as Facebook. And I hope that you can use this as women leaders as you navigate your teams and your companies through this crisis as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Naomi Gleit. Next up, please welcome Ashley McDonald. Ashley is the Director of Product at STChealth and leads a highly productive team of product professionals in architecting the future of innovative, proactive public health monitoring and management platforms. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Ashley has coordinated with the CDC, the White House Task Force, to plan COVID-19 testing and vaccine management product plans for a network that incorporates 11 U.S. states, Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C., over 31,000 pharmacies, and over 500,000 consumers. Ashley is here to share her expertise on positive disruptions during urgency and uncertainty. Please help me welcome to the stage Ashley McDonald.
2020, 2020. When I simply verbalize those numbers, what comes to mind? COVID, remote meetings, #Zoom, murder hornets, and probably a lack of toilet paper. Thankfully, I think the toilet paper thing has pretty much resolved itself. But regardless of how old you are, it's safe to say that the mention of a year has never, ever drawn the collective emotions that mentioning 2020 brings. And to throw another irony on top of everything else, prior to this year, 2020 had most frequently been referenced to indicate perfect vision and complete clarity. But I'm kind of thinking that going forward, optometrists may want to consider a new score for this indicator, because during 2020, it feels like every day we hear new messages of conflicting information, even from our leaders at the very highest levels. And in reality, the chaos has never been higher. Right now, nothing seems clear, but it doesn't have to be this way. What I'd like for us to do is spend the next 15 minutes considering how even in times of unprecedented disruption, displaying strong leadership can actually result in positive and unifying opportunities. Leadership is not simply predicated by a title, but rather defined by actions. Most often these are courageous actions combined with a clear vision and some genuine humanity. To set the stage of my personal perspective heading into 2020, I've been fortunate enough over the last couple of years to have had the privilege of leading an exceptionally talented product team for STChealth. For many years, long before the world knew of terms like COVID-19 or the coronavirus, STChealth has had a strong and meaningful mission to provide products and services that hopefully will lead to a day where we will see the complete eradication of vaccine-preventable diseases. Our digital platform of products has centered around immunization registries and disease surveillance systems that are currently used by the health agencies of 13 states, along with 2 territories and over 30,000 pharmacies. As the pandemic proceeded, we also promptly expanded our platform to create systems that combined our disease and vaccine expertise and produced products that ensured the safety of our country's critical workforce as numerous employers reopened their doors and returned to work. Our products have always played an essential role in providing potentially life-saving information, but needless to say, they have never had as much focus as they have on them today, and quite honestly have had over the last 9 months and will continue to have over the next 9 months. Very early in 2020, we began fielding questions about our pandemic preparedness functionalities, not only from our clients, who, by the way, have been facing the same exact stresses we have, but also from the CDC, the WHO, and even COVID task force officials from the White House itself. Now, I'm not going to lie. Initially, this high-profile focus did bring us a little bit of excitement and a ton of pride. But we also knew that if our products failed to perform as needed during this time, it'd make the news. It'd make the local news, the national news, and probably even international news. While most importantly, it would also leave the populations that we serve without crucial health information at the time that they needed it most urgently. Long story short, we have definitely felt and will continue to feel the weight of the many, many, many eyes that have been upon us. And just like you and the rest of the world, we have also been faced with the challenges of trying to keep our planning and our communications flowing by Zoom calls while balancing new homeschooling responsibilities and pets who now use our new work environments as their personal playgrounds. And I don't know about you, but when I was in grad school, there was not a class offered in how to lead a team through a global pandemic during the threat of an economic meltdown while also coupled with a social crisis. Then you throw in there the added aspect that this all falls during an election year, and oh my gosh, how do you beat that? But as product people, we are leaders. We are leaders by the nature of the work that we do. We serve as architects of the future, and this in itself gives us influence. Our product team members collaborate with development teams, marketing teams, and financial teams to truly visioneer the complete product lifecycle of the products that they inspire. Additionally, most of our product team members are also leading their families, their kiddos' soccer team or scout troops. And whether you are developing products to answer the national needs of a pandemic or facing other types of crisis and disruption, there are several principles that I find helpful while navigating the very chaotic leadership terrain. First of all, despite whatever your dictionary may say, leadership is a verb, not a noun. And for those of you, like myself, who it may have been a day or two since you've dissected a sentence into grammatical parts, what that means is that leadership is action, not a title. We've all seen people, especially in recent days, who have leadership titles but no real leadership intuition, and they're struggling. They're struggling greatly. But on the flip side, times of urgency often bring about leadership actions in many people, regardless of their title, that then elevates them into positions of influence, and they become a person that others follow by choice. As product people, I am sure you can imagine all the havoc that we continuously faced with the changing COVID information. This caused product planning to be exceptionally challenging. For obvious reasons, both our teams and our clients have been stretched to their absolute emotional limits. But when it came time to step up and lead the first requirements gathering process for our new functionality, the product manager on our team who voluntarily took on this challenge did not have the most senior level experience, the most formal product education, nor did she have the closest personal relationship with the clients. But despite all that, she showed absolutely amazing leadership throughout the entirety of the process and never once shied away from either an internal or an external stakeholder who during a conversation was actually showing the signs of all that stress that they had been through. Because of that, we deemed her as our Captain Courage. Again, not due to her title, but rather due to the actions that she had shown through her leadership. This next point is admittedly one that I personally struggle with, not because of anything having to do with my team. In fact, I will very quickly let you know that I love my team and could not ask for a better team. But the reason I struggle to stay as connected and present and personally engaged with each of them, at least to the extent that I wish I could, is due to my own tendencies. I'm a fixer. I'm one who likes to be prepared. I want to have a solution before I even enter into a conversation. But during times of urgency, your presence and your voice is more important than your preparation or your presentation. That personal reassurance that you can bring, even without a solution, can keep a person going until a solution can be determined. My other struggle is that I lead a really large team, and I never feel like I have enough time to connect with everybody. But recently, while listening to a podcast by leadership extraordinaire Andy Stanley, he stated that oftentimes fairness and the phrase of, hey, if I can't do it for everyone, I shouldn't do it for anyone, right? These things can often be used as a crutch. And instead, he encouraged leaders to do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Then come back tomorrow or next week and repeat that action for another. Additionally, always remember that being unrehearsed and unscripted is completely okay too. Now, who can forget the images of President George W. Bush when he was surveying the rubble after the fall of the Twin Towers? He could have stayed around the perimeter or viewed from a helicopter, but despite opposition from the Secret Service, he insisted on seeing, hearing, smelling, and really experiencing the tragedy from the center of Ground Zero. And when the first responders couldn't hear his voice, he borrowed a bullhorn to let the heroes know that he heard them. He also reassured them that the nation was with them. They sent their love and compassion. Now, the picture on the right is probably one that you aren't as familiar with, and that's because after the horrible mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary, President Obama insisted on private meetings with each individual family. He wanted to do this without the distraction of the media being present. Therefore, the only photos you'll see of this day are snapshots taken by the family members, not professionally staged media photos. In both of these examples, these leaders understood the importance of doing what it took to truly be present and engaged during moments of extremely high stress. They ensured that those around them could hear their voice personally. Principle number 3. As a leader, it is up to you to provide a clear vision, especially when the surrounding circumstances make things so very unclear. Now you may be thinking, Ashley, just 2 minutes ago, you told us that we don't always have to have a solution. Now you're telling me to provide clarity. What in the world can I do to provide clarity without a solution? And that is a great question. Luckily, it's also a question that both best practices in product can help us with, as well as the Agile framework. As you know, being product people, we focus on the what. As a leader, you should also focus on the what and keep your teams focused on the what. Then we can iterate on the how together. While the solution is falling into place, especially during times that the best you can do is fail fast, reassure those that you have the privilege of leading that you still have their back. And letting your team members know that you don't have all the answers is oftentimes both honest and completely appropriate. But when you surround yourself with a team of talented people and instill a mindset of confidence within the team, as long as you do truly have their back when times are tough, then you'll figure out the how of how to proceed through the tough times together and do it as a team. At 7:20 one Friday morning, during the height of our pandemic-related product planning, I randomly received a phone call from the president of our company. The sole purpose for his phone call was to encourage me not to fear when making bold decisions, even when these bold decisions had to be made in the spur of the moment. He gave me confidence-building words regarding times when he had seen my leadership shine and told me that he'd rather me ask for forgiveness when things go wrong than to stall and ask permission prior to speaking for the company or to make crucial decisions. He also reiterated that both he and the company's CEO would always have my back, even if at times they would have made differing decisions. Quite honestly, this was probably one of the most reassuring professional phone calls I've ever received. And now I use it as my new standard when I try to instill the same reassurance to my team members. For the sake of time, I'm going to do a bit of a drive-by on these last couple of points. But first, surround yourself with great people. Hire doers. They'll accomplish more than those that overthink themselves out of what could be great ideas. Then celebrate their accomplishments. Celebrate them like crazy and celebrate them publicly. Keep in mind that goals and rewards resonate really highly with high achievers. So openly reward the actions that you're celebrating and reward those actions that you want to see repeated. Then keep in mind that frameworks and principles are needed most during difficult times. So don't let the urgency of a moment make you lose sight of the importance of a framework or a principle. And always remember that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So always lead that stubborn person that's looking right back at you in the mirror before you try to lead anybody else. Now to summarize, humanize your leadership. The phrase, "they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care," is very, very true. And I'm going to wrap by borrowing one more point from the Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast, where it was recently pointed out that to go through all of the pain that the chaotic and uncertain times have brought to us recently with no gain would certainly be a terrible, terrible shame. As you are navigating current or future chaotic waters, be sure and take notes of the approaches you use. Note those that worked and those that didn't. So afterwards, you can truly make it count. I know for me personally, I cannot wait till we have the opportunity to combine the new strengths that we've built with some creativity again, and then produce products that maybe aren't pandemic related, but yet do just as much to improve health outcomes for millions of people around the country and the world. Absolutely can't wait. And by the way, have I mentioned how much I love this team? They are truly incredible, and I know I am certainly blessed. Thanks so much for your time today, and please feel free to reach out to me if I can answer any questions for you or help you with anything in the future. Stay safe out there, everyone, and I hope to see you all in person this time next year. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ashley McDonald. Next up, please welcome Kristen Berman. Kristen is the co-founder of Irrational Labs, a behavioral economics product design company. Irrational Labs has worked with hundreds of companies to increase the health, wealth, and happiness of users. Kristen also co-founded Common Sense Lab, a Duke University initiative dedicated to improving the financial well-being for low to middle-class Americans. Under Kristen's leadership, Common Sense launched over 50 experiments with companies positively impacting tens of thousands of people. She was on the founding team of the Behavioral Economics Group at Google, a group that touched over 26 teams across the company, and she hosted one of the top behavioral change conferences globally, Startuponomics. Kristen will share her expertise with you during our next presentation, Adapt to Work in Corona Era with Behavioral Science. Please join me in welcoming Kristen Berman to our stage.
Hi, all. My name is Kristen Berman. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Irrational Labs. And Irrational Labs is a behavioral economics consulting group. We work with companies to help make their customers happier, healthier, and wealthier. So behavior change for good. We worked with the likes of Google and PayPal and Microsoft and LinkedIn to drive this behavior change. But today I'm going to talk to you not about product management behavior change, but about your own personal work environment and how you can help make your work environment and your team's work environment as successful as it was and could be pre-COVID and way into the future. So to think about this, we're gonna think about general habit change. So think to yourself if you've ever tried to start a habit like meditation. So you've probably woken up in the morning, you just want to do 10 minutes, you say maybe later, I'm too tired right now, or I have something else to do. Meditation habits are incredibly difficult to start, and it's something so easy. You're just sitting still for 10 minutes, yet incredibly difficult to do. In fact, the first thing people learn about themselves when they try to start habits like this is how easily we can fail at incredibly easy things. So, by the way, also, it's not just meditation, it's weight loss as well. If you've tried to lose weight, on average, in America, you've tried 7 times. So that means you failed about 6 times at weight loss, and maybe 7 to do something that you really want to do. So in the personal sphere of behavior change, we don't have a lot of luck. This is not something we're great at. And yet, for some reason, at work, we don't necessarily have a problem getting stuff done, right? In a work culture, work just works. If you think about the culture from across companies and across cultures, from Apple to Google to Facebook to companies in the India to the US, our actually work culture is dramatically similar. We have the same types of things. We have meetings and deadlines and KPIs and performance reports. All of these things are quite similar across cultures and corporations. And I'd argue they actually work. When's the last time you came to a meeting and said to your manager, I just don't think I can do that presentation today? Or you get up at 7:30 in the morning for a meeting and you say, what? I think I'll just roll over and go to bed. I'm not feeling it today, right? For some reason, work actually can drive our behavior change in ways that other things or our personal willpower in the meditation sense cannot. So for today, I'm going to talk a little bit about why that could be, and why work works. And the whole takeaway is to understand what is special about work so that when we're moving to a more remote scene and setting, we can take some of that secret sauce and make sure to incorporate it into our remote environments. Wonderful. So to do that, we're going to think about the university setting. So there's a 97% class completion rate within Harvard. At least this was around 5 years ago when this data was pulled. There was another 97% class completion rate for Harvard. That's a lot. Most people who start a class finish a class. Now think to yourself, what is the course completion rate for an online course, let's say from Coursera? What is that course completion rate for a typical MOOC, which is an online course? And actually, it's 6%. 6% from a Harvard MOOC of people start a course actually finish it. This is crazy. Now, why is this? And so I'm sure in your head you're thinking about the course that you started and maybe didn't complete. I know that I have. And so it's not that people are all just browsing or not intending to finish. In fact, that is a chunk of humans that start courses, but there's also a lot who want to finish. So in this data, it's 86% did not finish that wanted to finish. So that 6%, may be low, but it's still problematic in that people are not finishing. And so why is that? So at first glance, you could say something like, obviously it's the school. And in fact, this is not the case. You know, that 2 data points was Harvard to Harvard, right? So there's some similarity between the branding of the school. Teachers, also not the case in MOOCs. You actually are taking some of the top professors at these universities and putting them into an online course. So it's not the skill level of the professor. And you could also say maybe it's the curriculum, right? The curriculum is just different. You don't have as many X lectures or immersive exercise. And in fact, also, this is not the case. I know I was surprised when I found out some of the average spent on when you first design a course is around $200,000 on curriculum. So folks are trying to make these courses engaging and interesting, and yet we have such terrible completion rate. So what is the difference between these 2 courses or these 2 classes? So to think about that, we're actually going to look at what we call a public goods game. So imagine you're sitting and there's 4 people and you're asked to donate, and whatever you donate will be put into a pot, and that pot will be split equally around with 4 people. So there's 2 situations here. In one case, you're asked to donate and it's private. So you can donate and your decision will not be seen by others. And in some cases, you're asked to donate and instead of saying it's private, you just feel potentially like you're being observed because there's this robot with eyes that's staring at you. There's no human, no one's actually looking at you. There's just this robot with fake eyeballs staring at you. That's the only difference between these 2 conditions. How much do you think people donate in the private condition versus what we're calling the public condition? If you said the public condition, you would be right. People donate more money in the public condition, 29% more, when they feel like they're being observed. Just a robot with eyes, not even a real human. So when we think about why these MOOCs have such a low graduation rate, we want to think about moving from the private sphere to the public. And so those are the 2 modes of modality here. In the private sphere, no one is observing you. In the public sphere, you basically are observed by others. And when we're observed by others, we tend to want to do the socially desirable behavior. So in a university setting, you're in a classroom, you're going to class. Somebody will see you, they will say hello. Maybe they'll ask, did you go to class? Did you not go to class? But you're doing this with everybody else. And in the MOOC setting or in the online course setting, you are going at it alone. You're by yourself. If you miss a course or you fall behind, nobody's going to ask you, did you do the homework? This is all on you to keep up with the schedule. In fact, this is actually what a typical university lecture may look like. Monday and Wednesdays, you go to class, and this is what a typical MOOC looks like. Much more freedom, kind of like our remote work. We could work anytime during the day if we wanted to. This is what a MOOC is. You could work anytime for an online course, and yet this tends to be more challenging. I live in San Francisco, and I have never been on a trolley. Trolleys are lovely. They're an experience. But you know what? I could just do it tomorrow. I could really do it any day. But if you're a tourist and you visit San Francisco, this is your day to go on the trolley. And this is kind of like what lectures in a university setting do for people is you give more constraint to a problem and people are able to fit their behavior within it. With complete freedom, we may struggle and procrastinate to do something. This is the meditation or the workout problem, right? I may want to meditate. I may want to work out. I really want to, but tomorrow is just a little bit better of a day for it. In a MOOC setting, the same thing. I may want to do my homework, but I'll always be able to catch up. And the real difference here is public versus private sphere. Because if everybody knew that I wasn't showing up to the meeting or I missed my deadline or I missed my KPI, it would be a very different story. But in these settings, no one knows that I didn't meditate or didn't show up for my class. And this is actually what the data shows. So a collection of MOOCs have published that when you open enrollment, which is typically great for numbers, high growth, right? You open the top of the funnel. Now you have something where instead of having to wait to sign up to go to Monday, Wednesday lecture, you can sign up whenever you want. Coursera did this as well. It actually decreases completion rates. So when you let people have complete freedom, but without the babysitting of the lecture hall, we're actually decreasing the end number of people who finish the course. And so this is the essence of the lesson for our remote versus in-person kind of work conversation. Is we're really creating an open enrollment modality of being right now, where you can work whenever you want. And the worry here is that we're actually accidentally moving from the public to the private sphere, of which private sphere behavior change or private sphere behavior is just actually much more difficult for us to do by ourselves, right? And the thing here, the secret sauce, is that we need other people to help us do something. Acting alone is actually much more difficult. And so in the work environment, when you went into an office, you would see other people working. Another example here, why do we think this person is littering? Like, are they a bad person? Did their parents not teach them that they need to pick up after themselves? Are they just rude? Are they in a hurry? What's going on with this person that they're throwing stuff out of the car? And actually what's going on is that people are more likely to litter when they see other people littering. So if there's all this litter on the ground, you're more likely to throw something out. And what is this? The same thing is that we're looking to other people for cues on what to do, and we take those cues. And so social norms is basically helping us make decisions. We're using other people as heuristics. And so when we're moving from the public to the private sphere, from going to an office into going into our living room, we're actually taking away some of those social cues and social norms that actually help us get the stuff done that we need to get done. Okay, now to the tactical stuff. What does this actually mean for your work? I'll propose a couple of tactical things that you can bring back. One is probably pretty simple. You maybe even tried it. This looks like designing more social coordination. So some of this is like no meeting Wednesdays, right? Or having a deep work time built into the calendar. This is really helpful because it's giving people some boundary condition of when to work, even if they're not with you in the office. If you walked into the office and everybody was quiet on their computers, no one was talking, you would probably follow the social norm and do the same. Sadly, when we walk into our living room, we just don't see everybody else around us working. Very tough. But if we have something on our calendars, maybe this could change. By the way, this has a bonus, right, of helping people avoid distractions. If everybody isn't working or isn't taking meetings at the same time, all of a sudden it becomes easier to stay on task. How long do you think it takes people to refocus after being interrupted? 23 minutes and 15 seconds to get back on task. So this is a non-trivial issue when it comes to distractions. And a second thing you can do to design social coordination is have check-ins or buddies. And this is a classic Scrum system, right? Where every morning you're checking in and telling people what you did before and what you're going to do and what are your blockers. It's interesting that we've only designed this for engineering, right? Why do engineers only get the benefit of using other people to achieve our goals, right? Let's, as PMs, as marketers, as designers, let's actually use other people to help us reach our goals, right? This has worked well in the health range. There's a nice experiment on helping people monitor their glucose. And typically, this matters a lot for healthcare outcomes. And so health insurance companies are willing to pay for it. In one case, they paid $100 for 1-point drop and $200 for a 2-point drop, basically just throwing money at people in order to help them manage their glucose. And they tested this against a peer mentor who talked to you for at least once a week. Which one do you think drove more adherence? If you've been following this talk, you'll probably guess. Folks with peer mentors actually had a higher adherence and a higher drop in their levels. And so the opportunity here is to use other people to help us achieve our goals, which is what a context of going into the workplace did so well for us. We were using other people to do the really hard thing, right? If we have a big presentation, the presentation may be difficult, but when you're able to involve other people, it becomes much easier. We don't want to swing the pendulum to the other way and basically go into the world of meditation, which is solely you by yourself. And if you miss the 10 minutes, nobody knows. The other classic thing here is that knowing that you're going to be asked about how something went is actually a motivator in and of itself. We can kind of foresee that question, and then because we know it's coming, we'll actually, work to avoid or have a higher quality output because we know that somebody will ask us what happened. Fascinatingly, we talked to 20 personal trainers a couple years ago, and we asked them what makes you great at helping to get people in shape. And I was really thinking they would tell us this great, routine that they've discovered about sit-ups and then push-ups and going back and forth and just body weights or no body weights. And the majority of them actually said things like, the most important thing is having someone feel like someone else is keeping track of them, or asking clients to explain what they did in between sessions, right? So they're not relating their secret sauce to the number of biceps and tricep curls that you can get someone to do. They're relating it to the accountability system that they're building. And then we ask them to pick, would you prefer a general plan with check-ins or an optimized plan without check-ins? So basically, a vanilla kind of workout plan, but somebody gets check-ins, or like perfectly optimized to their body type, but they don't get any check-ins in between your sessions. And 18 out of 20 chose the general plan with check-ins. So the idea of just having check-ins is interesting and important enough that actually people would choose to decrease the effectiveness of their workout plan in favor of having something that is that has accountability. Now, I want to caveat here a couple things that it doesn't mean, right? What doesn't it mean? It doesn't mean track everything. This is not a pitch to say go track everything that your team or your PMs or your engineers are doing, because sometimes we are what we measure can backfire. And the second thing of what it doesn't mean is that remote work doesn't work. Actually, remote work obviously can work, if you invest in quality relationships and trust building, it can have benefits to job satisfaction, performance, retention, reduced stress. All of these things are really wonderful, but we don't want to swing the pendulum too much and basically go into the world where all behavior change is hard. At work, we have to do incredibly difficult things, right? We're launching insane products that have never existed before, right? We're doing, we're working on things that are incredibly difficult. And so if we move to our pendulum to the meditation world, it's likely it'll be much more difficult for us to achieve the things that we want to achieve. And I'll make one more plug for going back to work. So going back to work is going to happen at some point where people get the chance to go back into the office. And I think this is a real opportunity in behavior change, and the real opportunity being it's very difficult for us to change habits, as we've talked about. And habit change is really based on the environment that you're in. So if I all of a sudden want to start working out, but my routine every day is the same, I have to change my routine in order to work out. As soon as I, let's say, move jobs or move homes, I have a new route to work. I have a new routine after work. My environment has changed, and thus it's easier to hack my habits because I'm able to insert something in. It's basically like you're getting a new operating system. When we're going back to work, the same thing will happen, where we're going to get a new environment. You may change desks, you may change locations, you're going to change your environment of decision making. And so as a manager or team, this moment is critical. You can really help your team kind of create better habits when they're open to doing it, because the environment of decision making will change. And with that, we will end on, if you want to get in contact with us, it's info at irrationallabs with an S.com. We'd love to hear from you. And this is a free behavioral design guide that goes over our behavioral design process. But just email us and we'll give it to you. Wonderful. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Naomi Gleit, Ashley McDonald, and Kristen Berman, and to all of you who have joined us live. If you would like to connect with our speakers, they are available for Q&A and roundtable discussions in our interactive sessions. Naomi and Ashley will be available tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and Kristen will join Irrational Labs Manager Director Evelyn Gosnell at 11 o'clock. You can find sessions on the side navigation of the Hop-In window. Coming tomorrow on the stage, join us for collaborative and inclusive leadership. Be sure to check out many ways to network with your fellow attendees, reach out directly, or meet someone new in our networking mixers under sessions, where you'll be paired with a fellow PM for a timed chat. Or start your own follow-up chat. Click Add a Session and start your own roundtable, then send your session URL in a DM here on Hop-In to anyone you'd like to invite to join. Don't forget to check out our virtual selfie station in the #20WIP app. Grab your Women in Product swag at our online store at bonfire.com/store/WIP. I know a lot of us either currently job seeking or always on the lookout for the next cool opportunity. If that's you, check out the Hop-in sponsor booths. You'll find recruiters ready to chat and PMs from your dream companies to give you the breakdown on what it takes to work there. Thank you again for joining us, and be sure to join for our next session on this stage, Collaborative and Inclusive Leadership.